Hey, good morning, everyone. How you doing today? JB here. Everyone can unmute. I think you're allowed to unmute on this call. Would you guys try
Yes,
to?
you are. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Well, this is, if you haven't been here before, it's we call it the JB and JC show, Ask Us Anything. JC, if he's your client, if he's your guy, he's over on another call, unfortunately, it's running late. We're actually rebuilding a very large outdoor gun range here in Denver, Colorado. He's involved in that project today, so sorry about that, but he will be joining us as soon as he can. So is everybody, let's see, you should be seeing my slideshow. Is that up there for you guys? Give me a yes. All right. And
I see your wonderful picture.
We're not going to do introductions. We never do introductions on these calls because as I already received a few calls this morning, people said, please don't mention me when you ask my question, or make sure you answer this. They're afraid of ATF folks listening, but we do our best to keep the ATF team off these calls and keep these just for our clients and our ambassadors. So just a few housekeeping things very quickly. Let me see if I can get this running for you. There we go. Sorry about all the emails and reminders, but we realized about a week ago we had a big problem with our spam monitoring service. We use a CRM program to keep in contact with all of you. We have about 18,000 client members who join or get our email list. Get our newsletter. And unfortunately, too many folks have not been answering or opening the email, or they haven't listed our main email for this newsletter is JB@FFL Consultants. Because it's not in a contact list, it goes to spam. And the spam police out there are getting really, finite in monitoring and cutting down on spam across all platforms and services. So that's a good thing. Unfortunately, we had to cut out, we actually had to delete or remove about 12,000 of our 23,000. So now we're down to about 11,000 folks from our email. We just hope all of you are. So just a reminder, to add JB at FFL Consultants to your email contact list. That way we shouldn't be going to your spam file. Join our email list by just going to our website if you haven't done that already, and that will automatically get you into our promotional and email correspondence, free things we give away, and events like this. Try to open one email every 60 days. That helps. The clients and ambassadors, just a reminder, you have the special number to call for our anytime service, and everyone else on the call today can always call us at the 720-336-0028 number. That is answered 24/7 by either typically JC or myself, or one of our ATF experts who works with us to answer your calls. And you can always send your questions into us at info@fflconsultants.com. All right, just some housekeeping stuff. And well, I'll put this information back up later. So just unmute your phones or unmute your Zooms for just a second, and just give a shout out to what state you're from so we know who we're dealing with.
South Carolina.
Ohio.
Michigan.
I'm here in Indiana.
Cool.
Nevada.
All right, good. We got we call them sticky states. There's Florida, Minnesota's real sticky now, California's, Washington State, New York, all the blue states, as we say. So it doesn't sound like we have anybody on from any blue states. So we can move forward real fast. And I'm just going to run through another slide or two, and then we'll get to your questions. We do have questions that were sent in. We also have issues we've been seeing recently. So until JC joins us, I'm going to run the show. So at any time at all, please just jump in. This is totally interactive. We want this to be fun and informative for you. Our goal at, if you know us, JC and I are also primary consultants for security and compliance for the National Shooting Sports Foundation. So we are talking to callers all day long. The NSSF sponsors that service for the FFL community. So thank you for joining, and never be afraid to give us a call for a quick answer. And that's our number one bullet here. We like to give fast answers. We call it real answers fast to all of your questions. We typically know, we've been gun dealers, we ran sporting goods companies, and we sold many, many, many firearms over the years. So we know what it is to have somebody on the other side of the firearms counter purchasing a gun, and they have what we call a one-off issue, whether it be from out of state or an age issue or a pistol grip shotgun being sold to somebody or an address, you name it. We answer these questions all day long. So if you call or email, typically call us. We give you that real answer fast, and typically, if necessary, follow up with it in writing for you so you have something to show the ATF inspector if and when they ever show up. So our goal is for you to get it right the first time. We'll talk more about that later. Today, no question is a stupid question. Let's keep it interactive. Everybody can jump in on these conversations. That's what makes it enlightening and educational. It's complete anonymity. We don't want to know who you are, but if you are talking, you can if you want to use your first name, that's great, or just tell us again what state you're in if it's relative. And you can also use the chat button, should be on your screen, hopefully at the bottom someplace. Maybe over in the more, if you see those little three dots where it says more, there's the first option is chat. You can also put your question in there. But being that we have a small group, you can just blurt it out. That makes it easier for me. Okay. Let's see. Well, what we think this week, we always give you an update real fast on these calls. We keep in touch, obviously, with the NSSF legal team, and we keep abreast of all the political news every day for our clients. And hey, the Biden administration is here. We never really talk politics. We try to talk fact. But one thing that concerns us, obviously, is Regina Lombardo resigned. We really liked Regina. She was a good acting director for the ATF for the last couple of years, very supportive of the firearms industry, and a great supporter of the NSSF and the FFL community. She's retiring for unknown reasons. She says she's going to spend more time with her family. We know what that all means. But I don't think I think she was bumping elbows there in Washington. David Chipman is not a favored candidate as far as the Republican GOP Senate goes. It'll be tough for him to be pushed through through any process. So even though he's in the news, we see his news, I want to say, diminishing day by day. The focus on him is kind of going away. So we do think if he is the nominee, there'll be a big battle on Capitol Hill, but we do not see him as a supporter of the FFL firearms community or the Second Amendment program that we all love and cherish. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. We are looking and hearing a lot about a lot of the gun control bills being pushed off to after the 2022 election. It's going to be hard for anything to get pushed through right now. We do have focus on certain topics we think are going to be continuous conversation. That's attack on the assault weapons. The assault weapon ban comes and goes. We don't know anything more than that, but that's going to stay in focus, especially in light of all the mass shootings we've had in the last couple of months, unfortunately. Universal background checks, we think, and when I say we, I'm talking on behalf of John Barker and John Clark, not the NSSF, although we share a lot of intelligence with them. But we think the universal background check is a smart move, for a variety of reasons. First off, being gun control and putting guns only in the hands of safe operators and unprohibited folks. But the FFL community realizes this is kind of stupid because criminals aren't going to go to a gun dealer to transfer a firearm. And so it's really not going to have any impact on violence from handguns or from firearms, but it's a feel good for the blue party. And we're just going to see that continue to stay on the hot plate and make it countrywide. Right now, 16 states actually use universal background checks for private party sales. We work with a lot of you guys, a lot of FFLs when that is implemented on a state level. We have a good training program for that to get your employees, converted or trained overnight. It's real easy. But it actually drives, we actually see it driving traffic into gun dealers. So you gain new customers by having private party transfers required through an FFL. So in whole, it's not a bad thing. We're actually supportive of that. And then the red flag laws. I mean, you're gonna have red flag laws, forever, we think, based on where you live, community, city, town, municipality, state. We don't see them nationally being rolled out. That's going to be a tough one to get through Congress. But on a state-by-state level, you may see more and more red flag laws being passed and approved. And the last thing I want to say on here is the ATF random inspections. We are seeing almost a 4x, a 4 times increase month by month. And we keep track of, with our members, what we see year after year. But we think there's a big focus on inspections occurring now for reasons unknown to us, other than the ATF executives wanting to increase that number so they have it on the books for the next directive that might come in. All right. So this is probably the last slide. I just want to go over before, 2 more slides before you get to questions. But JC and I, we started traveling back in February and March, March more than February, but we had some clients we had to get to because of settlement agreements they had with the ATF, and thin ice, as we say. Some FFLs might be on thin ice due to warning letters or revocation proceedings. But March and April, we got out there a lot. We did over 16 visits to gun dealers. That's a lot for us, 1 or 2 a week. And we're visiting gun dealers that haven't had a visit in a while or coming up for renewal, and a little bit worried about how things look. And so we want to go over the process real fast. A lot of questions came in asking, okay, what is the inspection look back? So a look back is how far back do they go back on your forms, and what should you prepare for and get ready for? And the bottom line is based on the training guide that the IOIs have, the field investigators, industry operations investigators is the proper term. They have a requirement by statute and training to go back 1 year for your records from the date of the inspection. And their report and their analysis and review of your records and processes is supposed to include 1 year's worth of transfers. So that is the standard. And we've seen less occur. We've seen, I had one in Houston a couple months ago, 2 months ago, that the inspector showed up, and it's one of our good clients. So it's a pawnbroker. He had a great process in place. And even though he does a good amount of transfers, does 200 to 300 transfers a month, he had only 6 months of records reviewed and didn't know why. The ATF IOI showed up, started the inspection, was there for 2.5 days, and never showed up again. And we want to say it was the stars were aligned. He had very few errors. The ATF IOI was trying to catch up with a lot of backlogged inspections. He didn't see any glaring issues or trends or errors or on the transfer process. He did a very small sampling of the inventory. He did not do a full firearms inventory. And he left after 2.5 days, and he simply gave 2 thumbs up and told our FFL that he wasn't even going to get a report on the visit. But we asked for a report anyway, an email, just to qualify for that 1 year, for that one visit over for the year. So it was documented. And we've seen only 1 instance of that occurring, whereas other issues are where issues are being found. Inspections are going back more than a year and a half, even 2 years and diving into records where errors are found and identified, and the IOI wants to build a bigger case for issuing maybe a warning or even a revocation. So it is all over the place right now, depending on your IOI and what they are seeing when they first visit. Our best advice is to have the most recent transfers really locked up solid and tight and reviewed, so as not to cause them to go deeper than a year in your review cycle. So 1 year is the standard, and you have all that other background I just discussed. Things we're seeing on as far as, and if you know us, if you're our clients or ambassadors, we talk about major and minor violations. The major violations we're seeing right now are missing signatures incomplete firearms descriptions, and that could be as simple as a serial number, which is the most important part of that firearm description, or incomplete or illegible serial numbers. Incomplete firearms descriptions, missing background checks or NICS information, transferring without that being documented. Transfers to prohibited persons. We actually saw a few of those this past month or two. And there's a process we use to help you get that gun back. Not only do you have to get the gun back, try to get the gun back before the ATF comes in and finds this issue, but then we have to do some self-reporting, and that's a whole nother discussion. If you have that type of thing going on, just give us a call. We talk one-on-one on those issues and help you through that. And then the biggest one we see is missing firearms here. If an ATF agent shows up and they do an inventory and you're missing even one firearm, that is one of the major issues that will automatically run you right down the road to at least a warning conference and possibly further. So again, just getting through some of the major things we're seeing. Some of the more of the minor, the minors all add up though. And in the world of ATF inspections, they'll never tell you what the major and minor issues are. We've deciphered that from conversations with agents, from settlement agreements we've had with the ATF, the revocation process and warning conference process we've sat in on. But there's clearly, in their eyes, some major and minor violations. But again, these minors, they may not lead right away to a revocation or warning, but they will lead to reported violations. That's something you have to answer to or should answer to and create an action plan for. But the minors that we see a lot on, and we've seen recently, is legibility. We're listing that as the first one because if you're not using an electronic system today, legibility is clearly the biggest issue that you'll be held accountable to. And as we say, if JC and I cannot read the information that's handwritten on a form, the ATF agent isn't going to be able to read that either. And in 5 or 10 years, when that form is pulled for a trace and to be used in a prosecutable situation, maybe in a court case or criminal investigation, if that information is not legible, it's going to be erroneous and incomplete. And the ATF's really going to be embarrassed at that point. So that's why there's such a big focus on it when they come and do your inspections. We want to get it right the first time. There's a lot of talk lately, a lot of focus on importer and manufacturer. A lot of folks are not listing importer, or they're not listing it properly. And a lot of firearms, we found a lot of firearms in the last year or two have been imported under other brands. Now, here's a great example. Just use one example, High Point. If you look closely, High Point is not the manufacturer. High Point is the brand. There's Iberia, there's Scalils, there's different ones who are now manufacturing High Point firearms for High Point, and they're being imported either by High Point or someone else. So you really got to look close on firearms, especially received in the last year or two, to make sure your import is properly listed. So we're finding the inspection, and this is all information we're seeing and stuff we're hearing about from inspections that are occurring right now in recent months. Delays, a lot of focuses on delays, either not being properly documented on your 4473, or the days the delayed days not being adhered to the Brady dates. And depending on what state you are in, that could be 3 days, which is really 5. It excludes weekends and holidays. 3 days starts tomorrow. It doesn't start the day of the transfer. You have to allow 3 days in a regular state for the FBI to do that background check. And then on the, let's see, today +3, on the 5th day, you can actually transfer the firearm. If you have questions about that, please ask. So that, the ATF is getting nitty gritty on all of these little minor issues. And again, we think to, not to penalize, but to get it right, to create the report of violations, to show that they're doing their job correctly for whoever their next in-office director is. Supplemental address verification, box 26B, we get a lot of calls on that, and we're finding incomplete information. We're finding hunting license or wildlife permit, but without a number. You have to have a corresponding permit number or hunting license number. If it's a utility bill, a state or federal or state, usually a state or municipal utility bill you're using, if there's a number on there, an account number, for the customer, include the number. The ATF raises their antenna really fast when they see something listed without a corresponding document number. We're finding a lot of 3310s, .4s, and 12s, the multiple reported firearm sales, whether it be handguns or long guns. We're finding a lot of those missing or sent in late. That is becoming, it's moving from a minor issue to a major issue for the ATF. So that is all about tracking, preventing gun trafficking, and providing real-time information for the criminal investigators at the ATF to see this happening. So please make sure those are happening same day, sent in or emailed in or faxed in, and be sure to keep your verification that you emailed it. On email, you could just copy yourself on email when you're emailing those in. And if you're faxing it, keep the fax confirmation sheet with those. We're finding inspectors to claim that those were not sent in on time, and to have the proof is just a benefit for you. And then lastly, we got signatures, dates, and expiration dates. It's dates at birth, expiration dates on driver's licenses. We're seeing this now. When we see it, it's a concern for us because we're catching it before the ATF inspector does. So that's something client by client we make sure you focus on, so we get it right. Again, get it right the first time. All right. Got that all done in 23 minutes, guys. We're going to open this up for questions. And if you don't have any, we're going to run through our questions that have been sent in or I guess emailed in from you guys and others over the last couple of days. So if you have questions, just simply unmute yourself and ask your question. I love when you guys do this. We will run through the questions. Are you guys still able to unmute? I guess I should ask that question first.
I'll ask a question.
Okay.
Okay, so I spoke with you the other day on the phone regarding interstate sales and the states that we as South Carolina can transfer, long guns, sell a long gun to, and have them walk out the door. My question is, since this I'm sorry?
Just had someone else talking. Phil, I think Phil's unmuted. Phil, mute until you need to ask.
Sorry about that.
All right.
So the question actually is there a main website, or where is the best place for me to find all of this updated information so that I'm not scrambling and going to 15 million websites?
Great question. JC and I, we get between 10 to 20 calls a day, and on all types of issues. And I want to tell you, a third of our calls every week are on interstate transfers. And the issue, not only on the person walking in to buy a gun from another state, but can I ship this to another state? Is it legal or illegal? The unfortunate issue is the laws are changing so frequently, and there is no one place to get a great answer. Even when you call us, we are trying, we've tried this over the last 2 years to actually put this list together so we didn't have to answer all the calls and just put it out there for you guys. The issue is, even we have to check the database, the various databases, even down to the state level, to see if the laws have changed. We've taken on a lot of customers in Minnesota and the state of Washington in the last year or 2 years, I guess, because of the focus from the ATF up in those areas. And we have found, obviously, the ATF is going after the same things that we're trying to catch up with, is these new laws and are they being adhered to. So there's no great place. And I'm just going to rattle them off for you where we check. We check, Gifford's Law. We check the state attorney's office. We check the statute. We check Wikipedia. We check the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Used to do this, but up until a couple of years ago, again, it just became so difficult to maintain. And here's why no one wants to do it. It's a liability issue. And here's the issue. Even if we do it and we put it out there, we have to make it a full-time job for someone to maintain that so that it's publicly correct. Because someone out there, a gun dealer out there, is going to sell a gun to someone in another state, and they're going to be held accountable for it. It can be an illegal transfer, and especially with all the shootings today. We have this, one of our clients is a big let's just say a major retailer in Texas who's dealing with the shooting from a couple of years ago where the AR, the customer lived in Colorado. He went to Texas. He bought a firearm in Texas he bought an AR with a 30-round magazine in the state of Texas. He was from Colorado. And the Texas salesperson selling the firearm did not fully check, did not realize there was a 15-round high-capacity magazine ban in Colorado. It's a state law. Is it enforced? No, but it's still on the books. Right. So not checking that, this person over in Texas sells the gun to this person who goes and unfortunately, shoots many people. And that lawsuit is still ongoing right now. And the basis of the lawsuit is that that retailer should have checked somebody somewhere to understand, or the state law in the state where the person resided to understand if there was any restrictions. So now think about someone like us or an organization putting a concrete list out there with all these different variables. And believe me, it's state by state. There's Cook County in Illinois. There's restrictions in New York City versus New York State, Massachusetts, all these different states. Florida, there's age restrictions. There's delays, there's time delays. So I want to say there's no one place to go and get that answer. And that's one of the reasons we have this service, is to provide that answer to you if and when you need it. Some folks have started their own list based on the states they make a lot of transfers to. For example, if you have a neighboring state that has restrictions, obviously you would make notes for your sales team on who can and cannot transfer, or what you can and cannot transfer. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but I think it's the same answer I gave you the other day. And many times we have to tell our callers, hold on, give me a minute, or I'll call you back in 5 minutes, just to verify. Even our list is 95% accurate. And we don't want to give you the wrong answer, because then we're liable for giving you the wrong answer, and we don't want you to get in trouble, and we don't want to get in trouble. Unfortunately, because of the state regulations and the vast amount of state regulations, that's unfortunately how we're dealing with it right now.
Okay, thank you.
But we do answer the call 24/7. So, and quite frankly, your calls help us. This is the other thing. When you guys call and we don't know the answer, and we have to look something up, we're like, wow, did you, JC and I talk to you every day. We, even though we're still distancing ourselves, we're not in the same office during COVID. We're like, did you know this? Did you know that? And even before we go out and do a new visit in a state we haven't been to in a while, we do a full review of the statutes to see if anything's changed. And even though it doesn't make the news, we hate going to Virginia. They're changing the laws in Virginia every 6 months. Yeah, we'll keep you out of trouble. Okay. Thank you. All right, let me jump into. I think I got page one of the questions up. So, what's my responsibility when I find a firearm missing? And these questions either are questions that have been called in, or issues we've tripped over and identified in the last 2 months during our visits. That's what these calls are all about. We want to give you the most recent items and issues we're seeing out there, so you can go back to your business and make sure you're not making the same mistake. So, I didn't even put it on here, but I got to tell you, I got to talk about the first big issue I had. Visited someone recently, and it was one of our scheduled visits. We go, certain clients we visit, some monthly, some quarterly, some twice a year. And this was a quarterly visit, and I walked in. They knew I was coming, and one of the fellas, as I walked in, said, "Hey, JB, you should have a good visit today. We all did our homework." I said, "Well, what does that mean?" He goes, "Oh, so and so had us in here. We were all fixing forms last week for 3 days." And I was like, "Okay, what does that really mean?" Then I go in the back room, and there's a stack of 4473s. And again, these calls here, we're being very candid and interactive. We're maintaining our anonymity. But there was a stack of 4473s. And the FFL said, "Well, I didn't go through those yet. Why don't you go through them, and let's see how we're doing?" I said, "Well, if I was the ATF walking in here today to do your inspection, would you be worried about those?" And his eyelids went up. So the learning lesson here was, the forms need to be checked as they occur. We always tell you guys, rule of two as you do a transfer, as you complete a transfer, before you hand the firearm over to somebody. Absolutely 100% of the time. Now, if you don't have a second set of eyes before the transfer, get that done as soon as possible thereafter. It might be an hour later, but certainly before the end of the day. Don't wait till tomorrow or Friday night or Saturday when Susie comes in to go through all the forms. And there's all types of programs out there that you all have in place. But real time, same day, as the transfer occurs, is the best time to check your forms. So long story short, as I went through the forms, and there was 38 transfers from the last 2 days. Very, very high volume FFL. 38 transfers, and it took me about 2 hours to get through them because there were so many issues and errors. And I said, and there was 2 customers we had to call up and come back and do something, make a correction. And I said, is this normal? He says, oh no, we just had a busy week. But I said, well, based on my simple review right now, and this is one of our clients who's already on thin ice, we said, listen, right now, this could possibly lead to your FFL being revoked. Pure revocation based on the agreement you said last year that you're going to be good and do your homework and have everything compliant. If the ATF walked in on that day that I walked in, unfortunately, I think, and I pretty much know, it would have moved to complete revocation, and he'd unfortunately, he would not have an FFL and be out of business, essentially. So we want you guys to realize that is, for me, the most important part of this whole training that we ever talk to you about is do it right the first time and correct it as fast as you can if you need to. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till the end of the week when you have somebody come in and go through your forms. So first question is, what's my responsibility when a firearm is missing? The good news is at that deal that we didn't have any firearms missing. JC had a gun missing over at one of his inspections 2 weeks ago. And first thing you do is probably a 5 or 6 point checklist. We walk you through, we send you a checklist. We say, do all these things and go ahead and make sure the gun's really not missing. Check this, check that. Look at your A&Ds, look at pawn redemptions if you're a pawnbroker, check your POS software. So we go through all of that, check your invoices, talk to your employees, see if anybody remembers that firearm being sold. And a lot of times we find that firearm, especially in a delay situation, when somebody gets a delay, very often we find a person coming back in to pick up their gun 3 days or 5 days later, and saying to the salesperson, "Oh, I also want that firearm." And that's because they saw it when they were in here buying the other firearm, the first firearm. They went home. We all know how this happens. Somebody starts thinking about it, and now all of a sudden they're getting 2 firearms, and they're adding one to the 4473 they already filled out, which is perfectly legitimate, but we failed to record that properly in the A&D log, the bound book. So very simply, you have to find a gun. And if you don't find a gun, you don't find a missing firearm, the answer is you can use enough time, quote unquote, until you exhaust your efforts to locate that firearm. So people call us all the time. They say, do I have to call the ATF today? And the answer is no. But if you have exhausted all of your efforts to research and locate that firearm, well, then the clock is ticking. Then you should be reporting that to the ATF. And we self-report it, and we report it as missing from inventory. We don't report it as a theft because that sparks in a full-scale visit by the ATF, and they do a full-scale inventory. So if that ever happens, if you're at the point where you just can't find a firearm, give us a call. We'll walk you through the steps so you don't initiate a full-scale inventory by an ATF team. Okay, any questions on that? Good. And there's different ways to document that firearm missing in your bound book. So again, we can help you with that if and when that occurs. All right. Next question we've got is, what are the consequences for not providing handgun locks? Ooh, this one's big. So these questions I had, now we had about 32 questions, I think, came in over the last few days. And we've consolidated these. So, probably 5 of you asked the same, or we have 5 questions of this same genre. So here's the deal on handgun locks. First of all, by statute, it's required and mandatory that you provide as an FFL a locking security device, locking safety and security device to the firearm when you transfer a firearm. Okay, now that does include new and used. Okay, and the issue comes to us all the time is, well, do I have to buy these? And the answer is yes. You have to provide those if the manufacturer, now you realize a lot of new manufacturers, I think all of them now are on board with providing the cable lock in the firearm, with the firearm when it's sold. But specifically on the handguns, by law, you have to make sure it's in there and provided. I'll tell you a few tricks. First of all, the National Shooting Sports Foundation provides grant money to local law enforcement, typically sheriff, municipal and county sheriff offices, to purchase these locks and make them available, or order them from the NSSF directly to make them available to anyone asking for them. So first things first, if you need locks, you can check with your local law enforcement to see if they are participating in what they call Project Child Safe. That's what it's called, Project Child Safe. You can look that up. You can just Google that, see what the program's all about. But it's free money, free grant money, and free locks for law enforcement agencies. And again, you can go there, you can get 50 a month, you can get 100 a month if they have them available. NSSF is very happy about providing that multi-million-dollar program to the community. If you don't have them, you have to purchase them, and you can Google, or look, there's eBay stores selling them. You can Google, but they're only about $2 or $3 each. Okay, if you buy them in bulk, you can probably get them cheaper if you find the right distributor. So if you need information, again, just go to Google. I did this yesterday for someone. We went to Google and found them on a distributor for about $260 if you buy at least a dozen. And yeah, so you take it as an expense. You can add that into the price, pack it into the price of the firearm, or just take it as a store expense. Not providing that lock is, I got to tell you, is an ATF snafu. So if they're shopping you, if they have stings in your area, and we know where they're occurring, we know they're occurring in the Carolinas, we know they've been occurring recently in the Kansas City area, parts of Florida, where you think, where we see gun violence and gang activity on the rise, or straw purchasing occurring. That's one of the things the ATF undercover shoppers will be looking for when they're shopping in your store. Are you providing the gun locks? Are you providing the Youth Handgun Safety Act pamphlet with all of the handgun sales and transfers that you're completing? So the best practice for this is simply put the pamphlet into the gun case. If you got a handgun case, just put that pamphlet in there when you receive the gun, when you check the gun in and you enter it into your bound book. Just slip the pamphlet right in there with the firearm, and you'll never forget or fail at that requirement to provide that Handgun Safety Act pamphlet. Obviously, you have to have the poster posted in some place publicly in your facility. Call us if you need help with that, or need to figure out where to get those. And make sure you're providing those locks. Here's the coolest thing about those locks. I saw a couple of years ago, and it was genius. At a gun dealer in Florida, he had a bucket at the door, at the exit door. He had a bucket, and there was a big sign on it that said, "Donate your unneeded locks here," or "Donate your extra handgun locks here." And many people were just dropping those locks in that bucket because they don't want to take it home, and in some cases never use it, never have to use it, have no children at home, have no one visiting where they have to secure the gun. But this one's going to be big. That's one of the biggest bills being pushed forth, is the mandatory locking and home security of firearms. So what are the consequences for not providing those? You'll get on a bad boy list with the ATF, and from there you can expect an inspection, especially if you haven't had one in a while. Okay, and I'm going to keep going unless you guys jump in and ask a question on anything I'm talking about. Next question: can I sell a pistol grip shotgun to an out-of-state resident? So someone just asked about selling out of state. The answer is no. The fast answer is no. Pistol grip shotguns and shockwaves, they're qualified and classified as firearms. They're actually not shotguns. A pistol grip firearm is not a shotgun, even though we call it that. If you just have the pistol grip on, and I'm talking about the shotguns without a full stock, without a shoulder stock. They can only be sold in-state, and just consider them to be sold just like handguns, over 21 and in-state only. So that's the fast answer. If you're shipping that to another FFL in another state, let the other FFL figure it out, or call the other FFL if you're not sure about the state requirements in the other state. In some states, there are restrictions on pistol grip firearms, but if you're unsure about shipping it to online or a transfer, if you're using Gun Buyer or Gun Broker, one of the other sites, you can always call the other FFL where that the customer is asking it to be transferred to, and make sure you're compliant in that regard. Shotguns with a pistol grip and a full shoulder stock are considered long guns. Talked to somebody a couple days ago about that. Right. What if I run out of the Youth Handgun Safety Act notices? Real simple. You can order those free of charge online. Just give us a call. We'll send you the online address just to order those directly, and they come from the ATF Distribution Center, free of charge, and packs of 50. You don't have to, I see them all the time, copy it at the store level onto like pink paper or something, but go ahead and just order them, get a couple hundred, 500 if you want, sent to you, free of charge. Okay, page 2, questions. Can you discuss the import and manufacturer requirements? I talked a little bit about it earlier with the High Point firearm that is no longer manufactured by High Point. And in this case, it wasn't even imported by High Point. It was just branded as a High Point. Haskell's was one. Iberia was the other manufacturer. But this is occurring with many firearms now. There's a lot of firearms coming from Ukraine, Brazil. You can look at Burses, and you can look at, I think Taurus is still Taurus. But there's a lot of firearms that we think are one brand, but now in Winchester, they're all being manufactured by other companies in other countries. So look closely on the barrel or on the markings of the gun. Typically on the barrel, you'll find the importer, and you can tell it's the manufacturer. You can tell it's another country because it's a country not the United States. It could be Turkey. It could be Croatia. Springfield Armory is made by HS Produkt. A lot of guns over in Croatia and then imported to Springfield Armory. So make sure you're getting that right. The ATF is getting sticky on this, and they'll qualify that as at least a minor error, a minor citable violation on your A&D book, and also on your 4473s if they're not listed correctly. And you can always correct this. You can go back. We did a visit, and they had no import. Actually, there might be some of you on this call. They have no importers listed. They've never listed importers. They haven't had a visit in 5 years, and they've just been doing it like this forever. They only list the what they think is the manufacturer, and in some cases it's not. But they have a name on the gun. They have a name in the A&D book, and they have a name on the 4473, but it's not the complete name. Again, that could be a citable error. We've told them to go back and correct what they can, work backwards for anything that's an open acquisition, hasn't been sold or transferred yet. Go fix your books if you can. But definitely going forward, make sure that practice is in place with your team when they're checking in guns. Look for the importer if there's another country listed on that firearm. What if the firearm information is not visible? Very simple. Very simply. If it's not visible, it's not visible. And those are the words you use. Or none. There's not visible or none is another good word. Don't use NA. Not applicable is a very generic term the ATF does not like you to use at all in anything. So the words none, N-O-N-E, and not visible are very acceptable terminology for parts of the information, the firearm information that you cannot find. All the firearms may not have a serial number. The antiques may not have a serial number. So there's none visible or none. If there's a homemade guns or firearms, if you can't understand a Japanese firearm, like Japanese firearms from antiques from the 30s and 40s that we see in used gun selections. If you can't read it, Japanese not visible, or Japanese cannot decipher, Japanese illegible. So the information you put in there is very important. Again, for down the road when that 4473 is used for a trace, want to put the right information in there. Next, how can I cut down on delays and denies? I am a pawnbroker. Okay, yeah, we had a lot of questions on this. So very often, the communities, pawnbrokers, great businesses, wonderful business. I should have been a pawnbroker. But sometimes the clientele in that area result in a lot of delays and denials. So we have a form, we have something available if you want to. It's an instruction sheet. If you send me an email at jb@FFL Consultants, I'll send you what we call a cheat sheet. And it tells if you're a pawnbroker, we have two. We have one for pawnbrokers and regular retailers. It tells the person filling out the 4473 what they need before they start, what to do, to read the instructions. It says you can't coach them, etc. But for the pawnbrokers, it says, when pawning a firearm, and this, you have to tell your brokers this, you have to tell the folks on the front counter that they should alert all of your clients pawning a firearm that they will be required to have a background check done to get that firearm out of pawn if and when they pay it off. So tell them that right up front so they know, and maybe they'll have somebody else come and pawn it. Who knows? But they will be required to have that background check done. And that's where we see a lot of delays and sadly, a lot of denials, because once that person pawns the firearm, they may never be able to get it back. And there's options to get it back later. You can have someone else with the pawn ticket come in and get it, but then you have to advise them not to transfer it back to the prohibited person. So we can help you with all that. If you're a pawnbroker, have any of those questions, give us a call directly, and we have some special forms we let you use to make that all legit and easier on your end. Next, who and when should we sign and date the transfers and sign and date transfer boxes 34, 35, 36? So this question, we had a lot of these types of questions. So who signs and prints the name in 34 and 35? Well, the ATF wants the person who actually hands the firearm to the customer to be the person to sign and then date that firearm as being authentically transferred on that date. Okay, so it's not the person who helped sell it, 3 days ago when they first came in to look at a gun and got delayed. It is the person transferring the firearm, because if and when that transfer ever comes into question, and if someone has to be subpoenaed to testify as to handing that gun over to somebody, that's what that's going to be all about. It's not about qualifying the customer. It's actually that transfer actually took place. So again, the person handing the firearm off should be signing and dating boxes 34, 35, and 36. Okay, next, how do we properly complete a 4473 for a denial? Similar question. So we see a lot of denials when we pull the denial file for the last 5 years, and we see denials that are partially filled out, not signed and dated, not signed. Doesn't have it only has now in the case with the new firearm, has the description information and may only get down to the NICS information where it says denied. And so to answer the question, every firearm transfer that you run through the NICS program, if there was a background check completed, you're obligated to keep that 4473 in whole and intact for either 5 years or the life, or 20 years, whichever one pertains. Delays 5 years and must be filled out through box 35 on the new form, including who completed that form and who confirmed it to be a denial. And but do not date it. Obviously, denials do not get dated because no transfer actually completed. That's what box 36 is all about, is a transfer date. And so there's none there. That's the only box on a 4473 that doesn't get completed on a denial. So incomplete is bad. That could be a citable error on your inspection, because we'll probably do this on another call because of time, but an ATF the ATF can subpoena your forms on denials frequently in criminal cases where someone used a gun they bought someplace else or bought on the street. They want to prove that Johnny tried to buy a gun at your store but got denied, and therefore, this crime he committed was premeditated. He was looking to buy a gun 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, and that's why the denials are important to keep and completed through box 35. Okay. That form might get pulled. Some of you have had that, but call us if you have any questions on that. We'll explain further. Denials. All right. So How do we handle misspellings on IDs versus 4473? It's funny, we've got a bunch of these recently. We think it's through the COVID and maybe folks renewing driver's licenses online or something with the DMVs not being open full time. But we have a lot of folks coming in and filling out a 4473, but their photo ID is misspelled. Their last name was misspelled. And the answer to that simply is you have to obtain something from them, a photo ID, that confirms who they are and match that up against the 4473. The ATF doesn't care that their ID was misspelled. They still want you to confirm with authentic photo identification that that is the same person. And call us, there's options for this, some options, some workarounds on that. But you are not allowed to use a misspelled ID, photo ID, on a 4473 as a form of identification. You will need supplementary information. All right, how do I stop receiving online transfers? Wow, that was, we have a couple different options for you. If you are one of those folks who all of a sudden is getting bombarded by transfers and you don't want to, two quick things you can do. One, we have a whole list of those main distributors and dealers that we can send you and provide to you that you can just email and say, take me off your list. Because there's somebody out there giving all those businesses your information off your FFL license. So that's how you get on the list typically. But if you want to stop this, you got to go back and send all these emails. It takes a couple hours, but then you can get off the, have yourself removed from the lists. But the other thing is to list on your website if you have it, all of a sudden increase your fee for your transfers. If you're charging $30 or $45 for a transfer, make it $60 or $70. People will stop coming in immediately to get their gun. And that's their problem, not yours. But you need to post it and list it so that it's publicly aware. Or put and that's what we say. Put it on your website. Put a sign up at your counter. Some folks also put on their website that all transfers must be pre-approved, or they will be denied and sent back to the sender, returned to sender. That's all. You can also do that. It's a pain in the butt, but you can also do that. The best thing is to increase your transfer price. And hey, your regular customers come in, you could charge them less. But if you want to cut down on the frequency of unknown or unexpected transfers just showing up at your place of business, increase your price and post it on your website. Those are two key things to do. The return to sender policy also works. It's just a lot of work for the store team. Okay. And the last one I have here is, can I transfer a firearm to someone living in a hotel? I had to add that on there. I added that because that call came in yesterday, and the answer is no. Because a hotel is not a permanent residence. And if you read through the rules and read through the ATF guidebook for FFLs, the ATF guidebook wants you to use your best training, judgment, and professional common sense, we'll call it, to transfer that firearm to somebody where that gun will be traceable by the ATF. Think of it that way. If the ATF is going to look for that gun or try to isolate that gun back to somebody based on your 4473 and try to find the rightful owner of that firearm if and when it's found at a crime scene, they're never going to find somebody at a hotel. So the ATF instruction guidebook does not say you cannot sell to someone living at a hotel, but it does say permanent current residence or current residence. And so you could argue all day long about gray area and hotel being a current residence, but we highly recommend not doing that. You'll definitely be raising red flags with the ATF if they identify that occurring at your location. And again, as a gun dealer, as we always tell you, you have the right, you reserve the right to refuse a firearm transfer to anyone for whatever reason whatsoever. That's as simple as it is, folks. You reserve the right to transfer a firearm to anyone for whatever reason whatsoever. Never tell them why. Don't create any bias. Don't create any social media drama. Just cut it off and let that customer know you're not going to transfer a firearm to them today, tomorrow, or next week. All right. Wow, I did that in an hour. I answered all the questions sent in. Do you guys have any other questions or want to talk about anything I mentioned? Still got people out there, right? I see a lot of people with mute on. Okay. Well, guys, I'm going to end with leaving you with this information again. Thanks for joining us today. We're trying to do this twice a month now. So look for your emails, but you're going to have me listed in your contacts list so we don't fall into your spam folder. JB at FFLconsultants.com. Obviously, you can send me an email directly there. If you have general questions, you can send them to info at FFLconsultants.com. Any one of us can answer those questions. Go to our website, just join our mailing list, open an email every 60 days so you don't get moved off that list. If you're ambassadors or clients, you text or call me any day. And everyone else, just use our general 24/7 hotline, 336-0028. And we appreciate you guys joining us today. And that's it. Any other questions?
John, got a quick question, sorry. Privately owned FFL company would like to transfer or place the company in a private trust. Is that an issue?
You want to move the whole company to a trust?
Correct.
Okay. You will have to reapply. That's going to be a change in management of the company. Let's go online. I'm going to tell you right away, it sounds like you're going to have to reapply for a new license under the trust. I'll do the, if you send me an email, send it to me at JB at FFL Consultants. I don't know exactly who this is. And we'll do a little research. I'm not sure the change in executive management actually will cover that. It's more like changing ownership company to company. So it might be reapplying for a license, but let me dig into it and we'll get you the firm answer.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Very cool. All right, guys, be safe out there. Do it right. Do it right the first time. Call us if you have questions. And look forward to talking to you guys again. Okay, have a great day.